Your call. Does religion belong in the workplace? 4 British Christians go to the European Court of Human Rights this morning claiming discrimination. They include 2 people banned from having their crucifixes on show at work, a registrar who refused to carry out civil partnerships, and relationship counsellor Gary McFarlane, who says he lost his job when he said he would struggle to give sex therapy to gay couples.
Sex therapy is directive. It is about helping individuals to improve their sex life, and that just crosses a boundary that conflicts with my Christian faith.
Is it okay to allow your beliefs to interfere with your job, or should you put your faith on hold until you get home? Does religion belong in the workplace? 0500 909 693. Good morning. Does religion belong in the workplace? 4 British Christians taking their case to the European Court of Human Rights claiming discrimination. 2 were told not to wear their crosses at work. One's a registrar, refused to conduct civil partnerships. The 4th is a counsellor who wouldn't give sex therapy to a gay couple. Should you bring your beliefs with you? I think there's probably a public sector, private sector difference here in our debate. We'll see. Melanie's in Watford and Casper Melville. Hello, Melanie. Are you there?
I am there, yes.
We've got Aurora in Bristol and Peter in Eastbourne and Peter in Leicester. Delighted to have you all on the programme. Casper Melville joins us, editor of the New Humanist magazine. And Mike Davidson from Core Issues Trust. You firmly believe it does have a place, Mike, don't you? Tell us more.
Yes, I do. I think that generally Christians are people who would find it very difficult to keep religion in boxes in their lives, so to speak. They want to express it wherever they are. Now, I'm not advocating that should become something intrusive or offensive, but I think a small cross that a woman might want to wear could be a very reasonable expression.
You say offensive. Of course, you're the Christian group behind adverts which have been pulled from buses in London for just suggesting gay people can change their sexual orientation, which was, to many people, hugely offensive.
Well, I think we've got to realize that the science on this matter is not firm and inconclusive and cannot be debated. It doesn't matter that professional bodies have made statements.
But do you acknowledge how much offence that caused?
I think it is offensive, but I think we also need to realize how offensive the notion that people have to be forced into accepting the idea of gay marriage in the land is. I think it works both ways.
Casper Melville, does it work both ways?
No, not at all. I mean, it's interesting that your guest said that the science was inconclusive about this. I mean, it seems absurd, the argument that homosexuality is anything other than a personal choice that is being supported largely by modern society. I mean, this is not quite the issue
but not the science.
Well, I mean, what do you mean the science? I mean, the science of human relationships is there isn't really a science of human relationships.
There is no hard, inconclusive scientific evidence that suggests that gay people are born gay.
Well, this is just a total distraction. That's not really doesn't strike me as anything relevant to the idea that if it's something that the society has accepted, it's not against the law as it used to be. It's something that lots of people would make that choice, and it's something that a secular society should accommodate.
And it's not even a mainstream Christian attitude. But hey, does he have the right to take that into the into the workplace?
Well, now this is where it really comes to a much sort of harder issue for a secular society. I mean, I do not think, I'm a secular person, I'm an atheist, I don't think it's reasonable to tell people of any kind of faith to leave their faith or belief or non-belief at home. That seems to me unreasonable. Of course, it's an aspect of your life and you're going to bring it into your workplace. However, how you bring it into the workplace is obviously going to have to be negotiated according to who you're working for, what kind of job you're doing. Your employer is going to have something to say about how you enact your beliefs and whether you're allowed to, whether it would be safe to do so. And you referred earlier, Nikki, to the idea of the difference between the public and the private sector, and I think this is really a critical issue. I mean, if you're someone who works for a religious organisation, for example, it might be actually part of your job to bring your religion into your job. If you're a vicar, it obviously is. But if you're someone who's working, in the police or in education or in a public service.
Lillian Liddell's an example. Let's throw that one back to Mike, and I promise we'll bring you all in, everyone. I'm just about to do that, but I want to get Mike's view on this because you've kind of raised this issue. If they're paid by the public purse and we have public laws, through the Houses of Parliament. Lillian Liddell, Mike Davidson, was disciplined by Islington Council for refusing to conduct civil partnership ceremonies. That's the law. Should she have a get-out clause because of her religion?
Well, it may be the law, but laws can be wrong, and laws can also change. And
but then you change it through a certain process, don't you?
Yes, and I don't think we have had an adequate process in terms of looking at the scientific evidence. If we are claiming that gay people are born gay, then yes, I think there is a serious equality issue that we need to take into account.
But you're clinging to this idea that...
I'm not clinging, Nikki. If we interrogate the science, there's very good perspective.
But the law as it stands, let's just take it from there.
So the law as it stands says that we can't do this. So somebody who is in conflict in terms of their conscience, I believe, it is realistic.
Okay, so Caspar Melville, what should she do?
Well, I think the issue is one of, if you are expected to deliver a public service which should be delivered equally to everyone, this is why we have an equality law, you have to... I do think that there is a difference between the law and between a pragmatic approach by an employer. For example, if it were possible within a given employment situation for someone to say, I have an objection to this, some sort of faith-based objection, if it's reasonable and if it's pragmatic to do so, it may be possible to reassign someone to do that particular thing. And I think there are cases, for example, if you're expecting doctors, Catholic doctors, should not, in my view, be, mandated and forced to perform abortions if there is someone else who could do that. However, in a case where someone is doing a public service, like a registrar, to perform marriages, for your guest to say, laws can be wrong, well, yes, okay, but we have to stick to the laws.
Why would anyone having a civil partnership ceremony with their same-sex partner want it to be conducted by Lillian Liddell?
Well, precisely, and it seems to me that sometimes people might have to look at their own conscience and figure out whether they're in the right job.
Yeah, Melanie in Watford, what do you think?
Well, for me, it's very much a matter that if I sign a contract with my employer that says I have to do certain things, then I look through the contract, and if I don't agree, then I don't take the job and I go somewhere else.
It's not that simple.
I think for me it is, because I think if you go through a certain amount of education, I'm a vet, I have to perform euthanasias on a daily basis, and if that's something I don't want to do, well then I don't become a vet.
Well, but with respect, Lillian Liddell was already in the job. She was signed up to a contract that had one set of values that were changed mid-course. Why should she then alter her entire faith basis and leave her job and go in another direction? There needs to be more space here for people who are working out these issues.
I still think one of the things I said in my text, that I firmly believe that with these debates about religion and lifestyles, that if I have certain views, I can have them as long as they don't affect other people's quality of life. Yep. And if I have these views, I'm allowed to voice them and so on, but I can't go around preaching to other people how they should lead their lives.
Well, I would agree. I don't think it's about preaching. It's about taking a stand according to one's conscience and doing the very best for the people that you're trying to work with, and being upfront and open and saying, I'm not an appropriate person to be conducting this ceremony.
With courtesy. Melanie, stay there. You've got more to say. I know it.
Sorry, I've got to go to work, I'm afraid.
Say your last thing then. Say your last thing then.
I still feel that if there's someone else there to do the ceremony, fine, but there isn't, then you have signed a contract to do so, and you have to do your job.
But you wouldn't want somebody to marry you who doesn't want to marry you, would you?
Then you go find someone else. If there's someone else about there, then you've got to still deal with with that person.
Yeah. Peter and Leicester, go on. What do you think? Have a good day at work, Melanie. Cheers.
The first thing I'd just take you to task on, Nicky, politely, if that's all right, is what you said about homosexuality and the Christian view of it not being a mainstream Christian view. In my opinion, if you're a Christian, you believe the Bible, and what the Bible says. I'm just an honest Bible-believing Christian, so whatever mainstream Christianity says or not, my view is if God speaks about it in His Word...
Are you a literalist? Do you believe the Bible literally?
I believe it literally, yes.
Right, okay.
I'm happy to do so.
Fair enough.
My point was, really, we've got to focus on the fact that Christians who have, or any religion, but obviously I'm focusing on Christianity myself, who have taken their faith and say, love your neighbour as yourself. And the fact that they take that into their workplace has changed things, and on a dramatic scale. Say for example, William Wilberforce, who was a Bible-believing Christian MP, who was convicted that he could do great things in stopping the slave trade, and gave up personally a lot of struggles in terms of mental health problems, and struggled with his family because of the amount he gave,
and chose to ignore all the literal stuff in the Bible about keeping slaves and taking slaves.
Well, what happens in the Bible? You look at the New Testament. Well, we could go into a theological debate. I'd be happy to do that, but I don't think we have the time.
No, you're right.
The New Testament, it speaks about slaves honouring their masters. It doesn't condone slavery at all, in my opinion. But
there were many Christians, there were many sincere Christians who believed that there was justification in the Bible for slavery. That's the point. But you think it's important.
I agree with you, but I don't think they were right, if you see what I'm saying.
Absolutely. But you think it's important to be able to take the love thy neighbour aspects into the workplace, and that's very much a part of what you are, Peter.
Yeah, my brother is a policeman. He's a serving police officer in Leicestershire. My sister's a barrister. Both of them working, as it were, in the public sector, very much at the forefront of things, and yet both of them would have the same faith as me and use that faith to, particularly my brother, as a policeman, to look at people, and he's been trying his best to... We all know about sort of the police targets to a certain amount of arrest. He's actually been working hard at making sure that people aren't arrested until there's enough evidence to prove them guilty. So his own faith has actually convicted him to...
Is that to do with his faith? If he didn't have that faith, would he not think that was still the right thing to do?
I can't...
Is he only good because of his faith?
No, that's true. I presume, as I'm talking to a man, I've heard you many times on the radio, you're a man who loves your family, and you would seek to do your best in society. But what I'm saying is that for Christians, it's accentuated. In my faith, I'm a self-employed decorator. These issues don't really arise a lot, but for my work, I'm in people's houses on my own a lot, and there's a need for integrity, honesty, making sure that I don't take cash, and if I do, it all goes into the account so that it's all there laid before, so I pay my taxes. There's a lot of things that faith does affect.
Christopher Hitchens, the great atheist writer, anti-theist writer, makes the point in one of his books that he left his wallet in a New York taxi, and the Muslim taxi driver found him, gave him back the wallet, and that was an act of faith-based benevolence, if that's the right word. Casper Melville, do you want to come back on this?
Well, I do. I mean, I think that what we're in a situation looked at from a larger perspective, where, as you said at the top of this program, that Christians are going to the court in the European Court of Human Rights and saying that Christians aren't getting sufficient protection from the law. And there does seem to be a sense here that there's a kind of persecution complex going on amongst Christians.
Persecution complex is a kind of prejudicial phrase.
Well, it is slightly, okay. I mean, maybe. But, people have gone public. I mean, Michael Nazir Ali was on the radio earlier on today saying, that Christians have been singled out. George Carey has launched a campaign, and various others, Eric Pickles, and even the Prime Minister chipped in and sort of suggested that Christians were getting a rough ride because of vocal atheism was putting them under attack, and then they're being singled out. And I think actually it's the other way round. Christianity in the past, for very good historical reasons, has received a privileged position in society and special protection and special privileges, and that is now no longer the case. We're not a majority Christian country.
So now we have a religion of secularism that is taking precedence.
Well, that's clearly nonsense.
What's
the religion of secularism? Secularism is a way to defend all different faiths in a multicultural society. Secularism is not a faith in itself. Secularism is a belief that no one particular faith group should have dominance in the society. And if you do you not believe in that?
That's why we ban the bus advert, because Christians cannot express an alternative view even though there are many Christians who hold to traditional values around homosexuality, we're allowed to have an atheist statement on a bus, we're allowed to have a Stonewall advert on a bus, but we may not have a Christian advert that expresses the alternative
Your right
view.
to express your point of view.
Well, apparently
your right to express your point of view will always meet the demands not to say things which are deemed to offend or to encourage hatred. Now that is just, we all live under those rules as well. There've been other campaigns which have been banned. It's not free. It's not like a situation where it's a free role for atheism. I mean, after all, the Queen still runs the country. There are still bishops in the House of Lords. There is still the Prime Minister professes religious belief. I mean, it's hardly an atheist state. We are secular, but surely all religious groups should buy into secularism because it protects everybody's right to believe, but doesn't give any particular group special privileges.
Could I just inject? I've got to get to work myself.
Is that you, Peter?
It is.
You've got a bit of decorating to do, have you?
Well, yeah, plenty of it actually. Funny enough, in a church. But I just want to say this. I feel I'm 26. I'm married. I've got a little boy, and I've got another little one on the way in October. And I think, as I look into the history of our nation, that there were big Christian principles, and I say Christian principles, and I'm proud to say that made our nation, particularly society, a much better place. I see people around that have pushed out any sort of sense of morality or even a fear of God, I'll call it that, and you see the effect upon marriage, you see the effect upon young people who are encouraged to sexual promiscuity, and look at everything that happens.
Which is the most religious country in the Western world?
Sorry?
Which is the most religious country in the Western world?
America.
The United States of America.
In terms of Christianity,
the United States of America. Which country in the Western world has the biggest social problems?
Well, that's a very subjective question.
States, if I'm honest.
Oh, that's what I do.
As a comeback to that, Nicky,
go on, Peter.
I would also say that in the United States, the same thing is happening as here. There isn't the same fear of God, and although you see Mitt Romney as a Mormon, and I would say the Christian religion is certainly far more promoted and followed, but at the same time, I would say it's on a downward trend in terms of society's acceptance of it. And you see the consequences in the States as well.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you for your
anyway, I'll leave it there.
But listen, I'm listening because I'm horrendously late for the travel news because it's been so interesting. Peter, I really appreciate your call. Thanks for calling us this morning.
No problem.
Have a good day. It's more to come, 9:23. Let's speak to Peter in Eastbourne and Aurora in Bristol and Jess in Hereford and Fred in Stirling. Peter, another Peter. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Nicky. Doesn't matter what religion you are, or no religion at all. You can't discard religion when you go to work like you can a raincoat if it's not raining.
It's what you are, right?
Pardon?
It's what you are. It's part of what you
are.
Yeah.
It's part of you. And you can't discriminate people against people for what they are. It's totally undemocratic for a start.
No, but what if an aspect of something that you believe is in contradiction to the law?
Yeah. What law? God's law or a law made by
we don't live under Sharia, so we don't have God's law. We have laws made under Parliament through our democratic parliamentary system.
Yes, but they, we for centuries we believe in God. We believe in what God taught us. You can't just discard that because some fellow in Parliament wants to make another law.
But this is the Saudi Arabian attitude, it's God's law over. Well, it is a bit. It's.
Well, you can't. How can people discard what God said if they're religious enough to believe in what He said?
Jess in Hereford, what do you think?
Oh, hiya. Well, to be honest, I've got issue with you using God's law as a kind of law for everyone. It's not just some person in Parliament that's making these laws. It's us voting for MPs who then make the laws. And you can't just discard that in the workplace either.
No, we don't. We didn't vote for David Cameron to change the laws.
No, but you voted
religious
for your MP
laws.
to vote to change the law.
Pardon?
You voted for your MP, who then voted to change the law.
William Wilberforce.
We didn't vote for him to change the law. We voted him in. He didn't necessarily get voted in because he was going to change all the religious laws.
William Wilberforce, Peter, he convinced Parliament that it was the right thing to do to abolish the Atlantic slave trade.
Well, he might have convinced Parliament, but if you believe in democracy as well, there's a clash there, isn't there? Because you can't just ask 620 MPs what they should do. What about the other 61 million people in the country?
Yeah, but the people in the country vote for their MP, who then vote to pass the law. And I don't think that's the issue here. I think the issue is that you're saying that, okay, you get to express your belief in the workplace and you can't just discard it.
No,
but for me, when you're saying that homosexuals shouldn't be allowed to get married, homosexuals shouldn't be allowed to do this and that to me is completely offensive. That's like you telling me that a black man shouldn't be able to do that a black woman shouldn't be able to do this.
No,
you think you should be free to say these things, do you?
You should be. You can't go against your religion. If you believe in something, you've got to believe in it, and that's.
No one's asking you to go against your religion.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. I'm just asking you to not be vocal about these sorts of things in the workplace. You can believe whatever you want to believe in your head. Just don't.
Well, you don't go around. You don't go around your workplace. You don't go around your workplace saying this, that, and the other about religion. If someone asks you, you give your opinion. You give your opinion, and if they don't like it, they don't like it. You see, democracy has been discarded in this country. You say we vote for MPs to come in, but we didn't vote for instance, thousands, if not millions, of immigrants to come storming into the country.
Well, I thought it was love thy neighbour. All of a sudden, you don't want any immigrants here.
No, I didn't say I didn't want any, but what I'm saying is we were never asked if we wanted them here in the first place.
Who was chuckling there? Who's that in the background?
That was me, Fred in Stirling.
You want to come in, Fred?
Yes, please.
Articulate that chuckle. Is this a laughing matter, Fred?
No, not at all.
Share the joke with the whole class.
I'll share the joke because I am an immigrant and I'm just listening in. And I just wanted to say a few things. Worse than that, I'm one of those dreaded HR employment law consultants, so it's even worse than that, perhaps.
Oh, my goodness me. Carry on.
I know. Shocking. I've used the swear word consultant. I do apologise. I need to be brief because I'm actually in court at 10. Just a few points. People can listen to them or discard them if they wish. First thing, there's two main parties contributing to the mess, and that is the legislator at the EU and the UK level. Producing law, they know it's in conflict with one another, and they're not actually having the confidence, use a polite word, to say this is how one piece of law fits in or doesn't with the other. You've got weak management, weak HR, not making the expectations clear. But two really important points. I'm a Christian and I'm a former Catholic. I took a decision quite a while ago that my church, because of its behaviour, didn't have the right how to tell me how to behave, and perhaps other people should think the same. And finally, be very, very careful what you wish for here, because the definition of religion is a commonly held belief. And if anybody's on the line, if they're an employer, if I tick on the sheet that I'm, say, my religion is Klingon, and I decide I want to watch 6 episodes of Star Trek a day, would they employ me? Where does it end? That's me off my soapbox.
Well, they got to employ you because they're discriminating against you if they don't.
What if you say you're a Satanist?
Pardon? Well, it doesn't matter, does it? We're supposed to be a free country. You're supposed to be
the number one.
Pardon?
Isn't the number one belief that I believe I need this job to pay my bills and make me happy?
Yes.
Okay.
What about it?
Well, if people put that first, I mean, if the expectations are made clear what the job involves and that you can do X but you can't do Y, if people walk into that in good faith and make that informed decision, what is the problem if they wish to change
if you're being interviewed for a job and you say, I want the job because I need the money, it's up to the employer then to say, well, we're going to employ you or we're not going to. But that's part of the rights of that particular firm that want to employ you or don't.
Peter, thank you. Fred, thank you very much indeed. You're in court soon, Peter.
Yes, I am.
I don't want you to be late. Go on. I hope you get off with it. Thank you very much.
Could I just say something? As an employee, you should be prepared to do the whole job. And the counsellor obviously wasn't prepared to do the whole job. So he shouldn't really have taken that job if he wasn't prepared to counsel the gay couple. I mean, I don't see how wearing a cross, or wearing, like the Christians wear a cross, or the Jewish people wear a little hat, or Muslims cover their hair, which is fine, but covering your face probably isn't fine. I can't see how that can interfere with your work. But if you're not prepared to do part of the work, then that does interfere. And the counsellor who wasn't prepared to counsel the gay couple, obviously, that completely conflicts with the job in the first place, doesn't it?
Well, what if you work you're in a restaurant and you don't want to handle a plate which has got pork on it for religious reasons? Does that mean you should get fired?
Well, yes, if you've taken that job and...
Or sell alcohol in a supermarket. What if you don't want to sell alcohol in a supermarket and you believe it... If a Muslim, for example, you believe that alcohol...
You shouldn't take the job in the first place, but I would like to say one other thing. If they change the...
Well, should you not... Hang on, wait. Should you not be allowed to work on another counter in the supermarket?
Well, yes,
that's a get-out clause then, isn't it?
If your employee is happy to do that for you,
right,
and to work around your religious belief, that's fine. But if your religious belief conflict with the job, you shouldn't take the job in the first place. But what I do feel is a bit sad is the registrar, all of a sudden these new laws have been brought in, and I mean, if somebody was training to be a registrar now...
Yeah, absolutely right. The goalpost shifted. Listen, it's 9:34. I'm late for a very important date. Simon has the weather. More on this to come. 0500 909 693. So does religion belong in the workplace? 4 British Christians are going to the European Court of Human Rights this morning claiming discrimination. They include 2 people banned from having their crucifixes on show at work, and the registrar we've been talking about as well, who refused to carry out civil partnerships, conduct civil partnership ceremonies. And also the relationship counsellor Gary McFarlane spoke to Gary earlier on. He says he lost his job when he said he would struggle to give sex therapy to gay couples. We've got Bob in Hull, Martha in Hearts, Vic in Llanelli, and John in Dumbarton. Good morning, Vic. How are you doing? Morning, everyone. Vic, what would you like to say?
Good morning. Thanks for having us on. Well, I guess the question is framed, and should a person of religious faith with a belief and values framework bring into the workplace? I think we'd have to agree with a number of folks that it's unrealistic that they wouldn't, certainly if you would want to hold them with any sort of integrity. Just a very, very simple example, I know this is a minor one, but it does bring a point. I actually did become a Christian, so I did change some of my outlooks and values, whereas previously I might have been happy to tell a few white lies or defraud Social Security or whatever it might be. One of my first jobs was a motor insurance clerk, and just filling in forms for insurance purposes, etc. One particular occasion, we didn't have sufficient knowledge or evidence to pursue the claim, and I was invited or asked by my supervisor to make something up. They thought they had the information, but it wasn't there. And because of my faith, which is an expression of who I was, I declined to do that.
This is interesting. Hang on, wait. This is really interesting. Is the only reason that you did the right thing because of your faith? What about people who do the right thing but are of no faith or little faith?
Absolutely. I'm not saying for a minute, Nicky, that the only people who would have that crisis of conscience in that situation would be from a religious faith, but for me, it was, whereas previously I perhaps wouldn't have had such an issue.
Got you, because of the change in your life. Yeah, got you.
Yeah, so many people would have change in their view on things. So please, and I'm not saying that just because people claim to have religious faith, they would also do the right thing. See, one of the issues is that many people of a religious faith may have values outside of the workplace, but then clearly when coming into the workplace, whether that's in their sales presentations, their contracts, their marketing, their business activities, there can be a real dichotomy between how people act outside in the family, possibly in their religious church setting, and in business, which is why there are so many people of religious faith who do have issues in the workplace, because they're not bringing their faith into the workplace with integrity. Now, I'd also say, of course...
Is motor insurance any job for a Christian?
Absolutely, why not? I mean, yeah, well, that is a debate. The insurance industry, full stop. You might think, should I be there? I shouldn't. But also, I would say, Nikki, that if someone has a religious faith, you also would expect, as a consequence of their faith, to also have some wisdom and grace and judgment in how they communicate it, and perhaps which battles they choose to fight, where some things may be important, some things you can let go, not because you're trying to be a hypocrite or without integrity, but, just being wise as to where you pick them. Now, obviously, you focused on a couple of particular instances on the show this morning, which are obviously great for debate, but there's a lot of cases where people just think, as an employer, I am actually self-employed for many years, but as an employer, I would have more trust and integrity. I want my employees to have the integrity in themselves, because then I could trust them more as an.
Would you prefer to employ? Would you have a prejudice towards employing a Christian?
Do you want my honest answer?
Yeah.
Having been in various business, sadly I found many people who have claimed to have religious faith haven't necessarily exhibited that in the business. I would rather have someone who is proven to be honest and integrity, because I know if someone could lie to me as an employer, then you think, well, if someone could lie for me as an employer, what could they lie? Could they lie to me? Now, I wouldn't distinguish between a person of faith or not, because in my sad experience, I've experienced both. It doesn't matter what label you call it. So I'd rather have
someone's in the background. Who's been huffing and puffing in the background? Who's been that? Somebody has. Who is it? Is it Bob or is it John?
I'm laughing in America. They're some of the biggest crooks in America. These are evangelical Christians and people of faith in Syria are busy slitting the throats of children. I'm an atheist and a humanist, and I don't mind paying my TV licence for people like yourself, the BBC, don't discriminate, but I'm damned if I'm going to pay council tax on pain of imprisonment to employ people that are going to actively discriminate against me in the public sector. You can bring in your religion to your workplace, but when your religious rights conflict with my rights not to be discriminated against, that's a different matter. Somebody said that the acquired religion. When we are born, Nikki, we are born without prejudice or without any religious belief. We either acquire it through education or indoctrination. You can discard it. Sexual orientation can't be discarded. They tried that in the 1950s when they tried aversion therapy, and it was a disaster. I wouldn't like to subject you to aversion therapy and try to change your sexuality. It would be a disaster and it would be a failure. And as for, I was laughing too when you heard this guy said he wanted 600 MPs replaced with 600 Ayatollahs. Well, we'd end up like Pakistan, where you've got blasphemy laws, where Christians are in the minority in the Middle East, and they're facing persecution. That's real persecution. And what's happened to that wee girl that was at 14 is an outrage, and we don't want to end up in a society where religion has the upper hand and politics are submissive to that.
It's 9:47. Here's Michelle.
This is 5 Live Breakfast. Your call.
9:49. Martha in Hearts and Bob in Hull. Martha, good morning.
Good morning.
Over to you. All yours. What do you think about this big case at the European Court of Human Rights this morning?
Well, I think I would say the workplace is about equality. So I would defend the right of somebody to wear a religious symbol in the workplace. But I think if your faith is going to interrupt or impinge on your ability to actually perform your job, then you might have to question whether the job is right for you.
But surely common sense has to come into play here. Lillian Liddell was disciplined by Islington Council for refusing to conduct civil partnership ceremonies. Do you think they should have just given her a little bit of leeway? Do you think she should have been disciplined?
Well, yeah, I think that could have been something she could have discussed with her employer. I'm not sure of the exact circumstances, whether she had discussed it with them beforehand, but I think for her to refuse to perform a ceremony that isn't religious, I don't think her faith really comes into it.
What do you think, Bob?
Well, personally, I actually think that in the case of the registrar and the therapist chap, if they was in this job before the law changed, then I think they have a right to go to their employer and say, it's against my religious principles, I find it uncomfortable. But if they've come into the job after the law's changed, well, they know what the law is. And the people with the little crosses, well, I think personally, it doesn't matter if a person wears a religious trinket, whether it's Jewish, Muslim, or whatever. As long as they're doing the job and they're not forcing religion on people.
Yeah, but you're sounding a bit sensible this morning, Bob. What's going on here? This is
well, lorry drivers. You see, we're not intellectual. We're just people.
I mean, this whole point about knowing what the job is when you come into it, but if the law changes, and you train to do the job, and then the law changes. I mean, that's a very important point, Bob. You know?
Well, I would have thought so.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I mean, I honestly think them two personally well, I would have thought constructive dismissal would be what they would get. It's like anything. It's like that you mentioned about the person refusing to move a plate if it had pork on it because of their religion.
Yeah.
Well, the way I see it, if I was a waitress and I was waiter and I was working in a vegetarian restaurant and all of a sudden they decided to put bacon sandwiches and sausage sandwiches on, well, I would have a right to say, well, no, I'm not having that.
Vinny's yeah, absolutely know what you mean. Vinny's in Southport.
Hello, Nicky. Good morning. I'd like to commend Preston North End Football Club. I worked there for 9.5 years. The manager for the youth department was Gary Peters at the time. He interviewed me for a job. He offered me the job. I said, Gary, if you offer me this job, I don't intend turning up on Sunday, but I will, because I'm a Christian, I will work Monday all the way to Saturday as much as you like and double time. And he took me on that basis, and we had a great time for 9.5 years.
That reminds me of the great story under the Jock Wallace and Rangers when they signed R.V. Cohen, the Jewish player, and they said, you realise you can't play on a Saturday. He says, well, neither can the rest of them. Which was a fair...
Well, it was lovely because when I did my coaching awards, very kindly, they put me on Saturday night, and I'd bend over backwards for Gary Peters and his team because they were so good to me.
Yeah. Pavan Dhaliwal's there, who is the head of public affairs for the British Humanist Association. Are we lacking a bit of common sense here, Pavan?
I think that we are, in the sense that our UK domestic courts were right to uphold human rights and equalities principles in these cases, and there was no need for them to go to the European Court of Human Rights. In any secular democracy, it's perfectly fine and reasonable to expect accommodation of religious beliefs.
Should Lillian Liddell have been accommodated then, rather than disciplined by Islington Council?
Well, the thing is, the important thing here is that they mustn't affect the rights and freedoms of others. But if believers are using their beliefs as a defence of treating other people badly...
But why would a gay couple want to be married by an evangelical Christian who thinks what they do is wrong?
But she's working for an organisation.
But she wouldn't be doing that. But she wouldn't be doing that anyway, because if you were gay, if I was gay, marrying my same-sex partner, and they said, well, we want you to be the ceremony to be conducted by Lillian Liddell, who happens to believe that you're her
profession was as a registrar. Now, denying people their rights because they're gay.
They're not denied the rights. They could get another registrar.
But the thing is, within that professional context, the law was right to actually prevent her from doing that, because as soon as you start invoking those beliefs, then, there could be a whole number of people claiming lots of different beliefs, and all that ends up happening is that people who are gay end up being discriminated.
What do you mean, a whole number of people invoking different beliefs? What do you think would happen? Run that one by me?
Well, for instance, in this particular case, so if it was Lillian Liddell saying that this is my belief, that this is wrong, and therefore in a professional context I refuse to carry out my job because this is my religious belief, then what then is stopping anybody else saying the same? And then what ends up happening is that gay people are being discriminated against. Now, that does not fit in within the equalities and human rights principles.
Well, disagree with her or agree with her, but she got the job and trained for the job before the law was changed. Because of that, should there not... Is that not an important caveat here?
Well, not really, because that's her... if she was so offended by the law changing, then she could retrained to be something else.
So she should have left her job.
If she holds this belief so strongly that she is refusing to provide a service for which she is paid to carry out, then yes. And that's the reason that the UK courts dismissed her case.
So what do you think is going to happen here in this European court today?
I really can't predict what's going to happen, but what I will say is that I do believe that the UK courts were right in dismissing these cases, and these are the equalities and human rights principles to which we work with, and rightly so. Well,
Pavan Dhaliwal, thank you for coming on this morning. Thanks for we've had some great calls this morning. Thank you for all your contributions to your call. We'll be following this case, of course, for you right here on 5 Live.